Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is episode number 61. So we can either go with Chris Godfrey. Is that a good call?
I agree. I was going to
All right.
say, you surprised me with that one. I was waiting for like Bob Cratch.
Yeah, Bob Cratch was another one. That was my
Yes.
second one. But I guess since we had one of the suburbanites on there
Chris
on the
Godfrey,
show,
though. Yes.
so Chris Godfrey, so he was there, and then also Cratch is another one, and also current Giant is also at 61 too. So
Well, listen, the fact that we're still here after 61 is the real story.
yeah,
Or the
61.
fact that I'm still here after 61, that's the real story.
Well, listen, the show doesn't exist with you anymore. Now we're on a soccer circuit. So, but
That's
anyway,
right.
this is episode number 61. My name is Jim Brown. Along with me always is my partner Jerry Calla. Jerry, it's been a long time. So, um, what do you think? Giant training camp started this week, um, and also the Giants retired. Justin Pugh retired today too. So
Nice
your
ceremony.
friend,
Well,
yeah,
well deserved. Greatest,
yeah,
greatest Monday night intro, as you know, from the couch.
yeah.
Justin Pugh from the couch. I mean, it was a nice little tribute. I mean, I think everybody loved the Justin Pugh 2, if you will, with the Giants because he really did bail them out. First time coming in, a lot of expectations, went to Arizona, but ultimately, that's one thing you'll have to say about the Giants. Started with Wellington Mara, how a lot of these guys do like to come back and retire as a Giant. So very
Yeah.
nice,
And
very nice.
had a Syracuse connection with Coughlin too. So yeah, I think he was
Correct.
an offensive lineman at Syracuse. So um, takeaways. Have you been following training camp? I mean,
Absolutely.
obviously, it looks
I
like
mean, the thing I love about training camp in the NFL is every camp has the enthusiasm and you always have, what do they say, right? The summer brings us hope. I mean, that was, as a kid, the most depressing thing is when the summer would ended, but the bright spot of that is you knew that football season was coming, as you got closer to going back to school. Giants training camp, the only thing that's really got me in a little bit of a frenzy, maybe it's my pessimism because it was talked about. I figured they would have really tried to pull this apart. I love the kid. I love the guy. Andrew Thomas starting on the pup list,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Joe Shane, who I am a fan of, really didn't inspire me. Saying, he should be. I think that's how he worded it. He should be ready for week 1. So now that kind of lingered out there, and I think the reason that is not more of a story, and I think it should be because I really think he's the one of the most critical players on the team. But everybody's, let's call it what it is. Everybody's goosey is the word I'll use. We talked about this as we were coming onto the air. Russ throwing his moon ball, hooking up with neighbors. They say Russ looks good throwing the ball deep. He looks like he's got a third win, maybe, if you will, since coming, since his Seattle days. Maybe this is the rebirth he needs with Dable. He looks good, and obviously, everybody wanted to see Dart. I think the panic in the Eagle, the celebration began with the Eagle and the Cowboy fans and the Commander fans that Dart threw his first pass was a pick. But listen, it's training camp.
yeah.
Overall, I think Dart is getting a good education, if you will, so far. And I think, to be honest with you, is the story is the what Russ has been doing with neighbors. Robinson looked good today. He survived a scary collision, him and Burns, but there's really I think everything's okay there. But the Giants have a good receiving room, and I think one story that I would watch. So let's just take this from the top. I mean, everybody's throwing Russ flowers. Russ looks like he's rejuvenated, if you will. You got Neighbors, who's has the potential to be one of the best in the business. You got Slayton, who's steady Eddie. Robinson looks good. Scatterboo coming out of the backfield has gotten some really good reviews, if you will. Thomas Fedoni, who they drafted, really got some good reviews with his hands. The thing that I would say, and it comes back to this, and it seems like we've been talking about this for years, is the big negative coming out of the offense is John Michael Schmitz. I know Abdul Carter put a move on him that made him look foolish, but overall, the review on him, everybody's wanting, and it is New York, and we love to panic and, throw grenades and jump up and down at the littlest things. But so far, I mean, I know we're only into this a few days. He's not really getting, I mean, I guess considering who he has to go up against, but he's not really getting, some strong reviews. And now with Thomas on the pup list, we could talk about Russell Wilson, the receiver room, Tracy, Scatterboo, Fedoni, the new tight end, Theo Johnson. We can talk about this for hours. And the bottom line is when we had Patricia Traynor on, it starts with the 5 guys up front. The plus side of that, let me just add really quick, is, Evan Neal, looks comfortable is the word I'll use at guard. They've been using him. They've been rotating him between right guard and left guard. And, ultimately the true test, everybody I think wants to see him in game situation. But Jimmy, this big spiel I just gave, it's going to come back to the offensive line.
Yeah, well, every successful run they had and every successful run a team has, if you're piecemeal on the offensive line, it's not going to work. I mean, we opened the show up with Chris Godfrey. You can name the 5 guys that were there. You can name the 5 guys that were on the 07 team. You can name the 5 guys that were on the 11 team.
Cohesion.
So, I mean, yeah, cohesion and also working together, because if they miss an assignment, that's it. And then, going back to the blind side, first thing you pay your mortgage and you pay your insurance. The insurance is the left tackle. So if you can't protect the quarterback, I mean, you could put whoever back there, and if they're getting sacked and they're not getting any time, then the team's not going to do well. So Andrew Thomas, I'm surprised he started out on the pup list. I know he's coming back from an injury from October, but I guess one thing, they want him ready for game 1, and I guess they're putting a plastic coating around him or a safety net around him. But I mean, the thing is, you got to get game time ready. Football is it's something. There's a repetition, there's a rhythm, there's a communication aspect of it. And then if he's not getting game time reps and they just throw him out there game 1 against Washington, who knows what's going to happen. So
it's very hard, as I don't want to make this sound really simplistic, but it is, it's very hard, even going back to, our childhood, the joke was made that, LT would play games to avoid, all the bruises and all the sweating, if you will, in training camp. And he'd be ready, we were kids, he came out of the phone booth, but, it's very hard. And, when we had, that's the beauty of doing this show. When you get these guys on from yesteryear, which is scary to say for us, but like the Billy Yards and, all these guys that talk about the 80s and the 90s, and before the union, really put a clamp on, what you could do on the field and how long you could do it. I mean, maybe that's why, you're getting a lot of these injuries now. I mean, that would be something really to look into, is that guys play less and less, in preseason. I mean, it was always the standard. I remember, when Phil Simms and, when we were kids, and those were our heroes, so to speak, preseason game 1, Phil Simms would play maybe a series, right? Preseason 2, he'd play maybe a half, right? And then 3, they would pretty much take off, or 3, he would play a little bit more. And then 4, preseason 4, was always for the, for the guys on the bubble, so to speak, and the starters would never play. But the bottom line is 3 out of those 4 games, the starters would get repetitions. And
I think if memory serves me correct, I think Phil Simms ended up getting injured in a preseason game, and that's when Scott Bruner came in. So, I mean, listen, it's a risk.
That was his nickname.
Yeah. So, but a couple highlights they talked about: Wan'Dale Robinson and Andrew Phillips going after 2 Kentucky players going at each other, so a lot of fanfare there. And looks like we talked about this with Abdul Carter. I mean, he just seems like the real deal. I mean, it's probably so you called it, and we had our draft episode, probably the first lockdown pick that they had in a long time. So he looks like the real deal, and all these other things are being put to the wayside. But he looks like he's the real deal. But are you surprised that they moved Jackson Dart up from QB3 to QB2 and put Winston at
That's not
3?
confirmed.
It's not confirmed. All right. Well,
That is not confirmed. So
that's
what
that's been out. That's been out there. So I don't know. I don't want to. I
well,
don't
that
want to.
was basically what happened was day one, obviously they made it that Russ is QB1, QB2 is open.
Okay.
That's what it is. Dart does have the opportunity to be QB2, and that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So that I think I don't think, to be honest with you, and I'm glad you brought this up. I don't think anybody is was expecting Dable to follow up that Russ was going to be QB1 with that statement. So,
Okay.
that he was going to be that Dart would have the opportunity, okay, to finish to move up to QB2.
Yeah. I mean, they paid him. I mean, they're paying him for 2 years, so he's not going away. And then also you got DeVito in the mix too. So they got 4 QBs. They got 5 tight ends, like talked about Fedoni and also Theo Johnson. Obviously, Dart threw his touchdown to him. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, of course, we're going to watch it, but here it is in July. We got a lot going on, and we're talking Giants football. So
Listen, it's what we want, right? I mean, it's what the league wants. I mean, like we should, back in the day, I mean, listen, we're going to still talk Yankees. That's a whole
yeah,
nother story. But listen, the NFL, as we talk about, it's a 12-month, it's a 12-month thing, really. And training camp comes, and it comes fast and furious, and and that's what the league wants. That's what the fans want. And I think it's fabulous. I mean, again, now everybody is you have the excitement, if you will, where you get tickets to go to training camp. I mean, you have people flooding the whole league, across the whole league, sitting in bleachers, just watching guys, really without pads yet, really,
yeah,
really doing 7-on-7s and, 11-on-11s at the end of practice,
yeah. So
so
pads, I believe, starts on Monday. So
that's
and then
correct. Pad starts on Monday.
and I
And
think they
just
got
to
to.
touch upon what you brought him up is Abdul Carter. He, I believe it was yesterday, there was a video circulating. I mean, he just put this move on Michael Schmitz, and I think everybody was fascinated, him beating John Michael Schmitz. But I think what's really in that story is where he was lined up. Here's a guy who is an edge rusher, and he's coming from basically over the ball. And I think
Yeah,
that's really the story. So, expect that's something, the ability to move a player like that around, is unbelievable. And I listen, the defense is going to be good. The defense, I think, has the potential to be really, really good. If they could get the back end situated, Flott and Banks are battling for the one corner spot. But, up front, that front seven, they're going to be a force to
yeah,
be reckoned with. The schedule is the schedule. And, again, I can't believe it. I don't want to, shoot a pessimism into this, but there's some questions already lingering after day 3 on center about the center, and you have Thomas on the pup list. So
yeah,
that's where it seems that we've been doing this, like you said, this is 61 episodes in, right? But then you look back at where you got the Dable era, the offensive line has been an issue, injuries, poor play and whatnot. Joe Judge, you want to keep going. We could keep going back and back. And, this is like a reoccurring thing. Like, what is it? Why already is, I mean, I don't think anybody was expecting him to be put on the pup list. But,
yeah.
listen,
Well,
maybe it's much ado about nothing. He starts, he progresses nicely, he heals nicely, whatever, he gets himself healthy, and then come week one he goes. But
Well, well, that would be the best possible scenario. But
absolutely.
so we'll see.
I mean,
But
other takeaways. I mean, I think like I said, there without being pessimistic, because the schedule is brutal. I mean, you look at the first few weeks, but that is what it is, right? I think what makes it surprising is the Giants are coming off a very poor year, and the schedule is pretty difficult. That is what it is. But there's a lot of good stories, and to stay on the positive, there's a lot of good stories. Like Scatterboo, he's already got a cult following. They already have the character shirts with his face on them. They're out there. The guy's getting, rave reviews about his hands. Dart is Dart. I mean, what do they say, right? Youth sometimes, you get that infusion of youth, and it really inspires optimism. And I mean, the last year's draft class was solid. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about. And what's the realistic? The other day, I saw somebody, I forgot who it was, predicted the Giants were going to go 8-9. And miss the playoffs by a game. Listen, I'll sign up right now.
Yeah, well, that's me every year. When it was 16 games, I always just figured 8-8, and
Right.
if they did more, it would be said breaking news: Yankees acquire Ryan Monahan, McMahon from the Rockies. So our producer just put that. We'll move to the Yankees, but getting back to Russell Wilson and the Giants, but he's got his same locker he used during the Super Bowl game, that they won 11 years ago with Seattle. So I think that was the pickup, and hopefully 8-9. I think I'll sign up for it. But let's our producer Dave Sturcio says let's talk about the Yankees. I watched the Blue Jay series. The second game I had to turn off. I mean, excited about Judge and his, home run, but he was going 0 for 8 before that. So, and Volpe, I think he's got 12 or 13 errors. I think he's leading the league. So they got to make some moves here, Jerry. So what do you think about the Yankees? They're in second place. Blue Jays, you lapped them. And not only that, you had the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox won 10 games in a row. And now they're right behind them by 2 or 3 games. So just pivot to the Yankees.
I think before, we get into what they need to do, I think what's been so frustrating is the way they're losing, right? If you remember how they lost the World Series, coming out of the World Series loss, when have you ever heard rival scouts, people around baseball say, wow, the Yankees in the World Series were kind of, poor fundamentally. And man, 4 errors the other day. I mean,
it was
the way they're losing.
It was hard to watch. It really was.
The way they're losing. I mean, Fried, like, he wasn't at his best, but he wasn't at his worst. And like, if you would have told me, and I think this is the surprising thing, is that look at all the injuries to the starting pitching. And the pitching hasn't let them down. I mean, the fielding, they don't put the ball, to me, like, it's funny, right? Since the Toronto series are really like, a focal point of their poor run, if you will, because it's a division opponent. And now that's who they look up at, right? Is you always have to laugh, if you will. And I mean that sarcastically, is when Boone talks about the Blue Jays, right? He talks about what they do well. They take pitches. They run the count high, if you will, or deep, I should say. And the thing that he always references, they know how to put the ball in play. They know how to move runners. And it's funny because you really interpret those words. That's like what you could read that he's criticizing his own team, because that's what they don't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't think,
yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, to me, like, I don't know, like, they just looked bad the other day, and he got, the umpire, he got into it with the umpire. So it was just, bad. It was just bad, bad all around.
It's just a frustrating, it's a frustrating situation. I think now you're, I thought we lost you there.
Yeah.
I thought you were bailing. I
Yeah,
thought you
my
were pulling
battery.
like a Jim Everett.
Yeah, no,
But
my battery's going low, so just make sure that
But
that
we, and again, thanks to Dave for providing us with the breaking news there. Ryan McMahon, I'm not surprised. I really didn't think that the Yankees. I know everybody wanted Suarez. He's in the mid 30s in homers. Mid 80s in RBIs. Really coming off a
yeah,
really good stretch from last year's All-Star game. I think he's like fourth in all of baseball since the 2024 All-Star game in power numbers. I didn't think that the Yankees were going to get him because of what it would have cost. Um, you know, we just see it now. McMahon 16 homers, 217. The 217 is not going to get you excited, but again, 16 homers. He has 76 hits. Okay, and 350 at bats. Okay, that is an upgrade of what they have by far at the position now.
yeah.
So again, I know
But
Joel
also
Sherman did
too,
it.
I mean, if you look at Colorado, they were having one of the worst seasons in the history of
Yeah,
baseball too. So
absolutely.
so you didn't really have anything around them. So a player like that, you could pitch around them. So we'll see, but they got
And
to do
one
something.
thing about this McMahon move, because the New York Post, and I was surprised Joel Sherman mentioned this. Joel Sherman said he didn't want McMahon. Okay. But the thing is, okay, is that the Yankees weren't going to do it. And I know it would have been a great story. All right. Is that Charlie Hayes' son was not going to be in play because they were just not going to take on that payroll.
Yeah,
So I think, either one of those two guys, I'm not surprised that they got Ryan. He, like I said, 16 homers, good with the glove. It's an upgrade what they have. Where I think the Yankees are going to spend their capital, if you will. And there's a lot of rumors, is Ben Rice available? Is Spencer Jones available? They're going to look to make definitely to get some arms.
yeah,
Which is interesting because that's what we haven't been talking about, but the starting pitching has been okay. Some band-aids are being placed, throughout the year. The bullpen is just waxed.
yeah,
The bullpen is waxed. The bullpen is taxed. I mean, Loizaga hasn't looked the same. I mean, those guys, and I know they've been really having to pitch a lot of innings. You got Leiter on the the injured list. As far as I'm concerned, he could stay there. He's been a nightmare.
so. But I
But
mean,
again,
they also use them a lot too. So I mean,
they did. But again, he wasn't. Listen, he wasn't inspiring. And the other thing is that I think putting everything aside, right? There's losing and then there's losing. And just the way the Yankees are losing, is bad. We can go back, base running, errors, it's just bad baseball, all around. And you look around the diamond, Goldschmidt started off really, really hot. Overall, obviously he's been a productive player, right? Jazz at second since he came back. That's where Jazz belongs at second base.
yeah,
You know,
and he
he,
was an
he's, he's
all-star too. So
he made the
good for him.
All-Star team. He's producing. Then you look at the left side of the infield. That's been a disaster. Wells, Escara, Rice behind the plate, Rice DH, and when they rotate the DH, overall in the outfield, Bellinger's really having a good year. Super athletic. That's what Boone always references with him. His home runs, he's pushing. I think he's got 18 now. Average creeped up. Guy's a good fielder, could play four positions for you. And then you get into a situation where the one guy that really doesn't inspire me, is Stanton, because
Yeah.
ultimately
Well,
the Yankees are paying Stanton for what he has done and what he could possibly do. But again, that's just he gets on base, he clogs the bases.
yeah,
I'm not inspired
he's a
by that.
liability out in the field. So I mean,
You'll never
yeah,
see him in the
yeah.
field, and
So
and again, here we are. We're talking about how in the NFL, obviously, when training camp starts, that everybody has enthusiasm, and here we are. I would have never thought, based on the way the season started, a guy's number is going to drop, or a guy's going to get, Obviously, you're not going to continue the pace like a guy like Grissom or a guy like Goldschmidt. But man, I didn't. If you would have told me in May that the Yankees would be 4.5 out in second, Boston would be 2.5 behind them, in third, and Toronto would be in first, I would be
Yeah.
shocked.
Well,
I would
I
have
mean,
been
they
shocked.
were cruising along, looked like they made all the right moves, and it got real bad real quick. So
Yeah, but again, though,
so
it's here's the deal. You're talking about Major League Baseball players, right? And you're talking about the thing that a lot of people took away from the World Series, okay, is that they lost, and their fundamentals stunk. And here we are, how many months later, we're heading into August and we're still having that same conversation. And I can tell you right now, as you know, okay, at some point, if the old man was still around, God rest his soul, somebody would have got let go. And I don't
oh
even
yeah,
know if that would have been Boone, that a position coach, somebody would have got let go, just to make a statement to kind of put everybody on notice, and I'll be honest with you, I was actually surprised, not that it's in Boone or Cashman's MO, but they've made moves before, and I'm surprised that somebody didn't get let go. And that's kind of where we are.
yeah.
Obviously, we're sitting here like most Yankee fans. People are expecting them to trade themselves. That's really what it is, to trade themselves out of this slump.
Yeah. Do you think Spencer Jones? I know he's tearing up in AAA. You think that they bring him up?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know if they're going to bring him up. I'd be more comfortable leaving here. The one thing I don't want is I don't want him to get traded.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, obviously you got to see
Well,
the return, but
I mean,
from what I saw is he is the only person that is untouchable is George Lombard, who is a shortstop, who was in the futures game for the Yankees, and I think supposedly some people say Spencer Jones is not untouchable. Some people say he is. So it'll be interesting. But July 31st, which is about 6 days away, is the deadline. And there is nothing that can happen after that. There is absolutely nothing that can happen after that. There is no August waivers. And, it'll be interesting to see, what pans out these next few days. And, we'll kind of go from there. The one other thing that I wanted to bring up is we have, obviously, which was always a very, very big deal, for older fans and newer fans alike, is Yankee Old Timers Day is coming up. And the one person, they're honoring the 2000 World Series team, 25 years, obviously. They're actually originally we're going to go to a softball game. They transitioned to actually having a baseball game as they've done in the past. In the last few years, it was a Q&A, and Derek Jeter is not returning to be with his teammates. Got a little bit of criticism. I don't want to say too heavy criticism, but I think it's warranted. And I'm going to ask our producer, Dave Sturcio, who is a Yankee fan, if he could weigh in, because, Dave, I really think that Jeter should be there. How do you feel about that?
Jeter's always been a team guy, so it's kind of alarming that he would deny it. But it is what it is at this point. I don't fault him for not wanting to be involved. I'm a Jeter guy. I've only bought 2 jerseys in my life. One is Jeter, one is Judge. So I'm not about to bash Jeter for not wanting to participate. But sometimes it just gets I don't want to say you overstay your welcome, but he's more part of the media now, and he doesn't want to show any kind of favoritism. I kind of dig it. So
now, Dave, what did you think about Boomer? Because I think the first person I was expecting a little bit more criticism, if you will, because I think there is an anti-Jeter, obviously, group out there, if you will. So I figured they would be like, like a shark in the water circling. But Boomer said it makes him look like an elitist.
I mean, Boomer's. I love Boomer. I usually agree with everything he says, but he's also a Mets fan, so I'm going to take
Right.
that with a little bit of a grain. But again, it's not, he's not looking down at his nose. I think he's just looking at it as a media personality. That's kind of like if the Bengals had a old timers day and Boomer went and participated in a flag football game. I would look at Boomer a little differently if I'm a New York market guy. Like, wait a minute, like he's a Jet too. You know what I mean? Like, I guess a little bit of I don't know. I like I said, I usually agree with Boomer, but I think his Mets fanhood is showing. But I'm going to jump off, and Jim is back in the building. So that's just my take. But
yeah. Well, thanks for joining, and congratulations on War at the Shore too. That was a good.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So I think the next one,
Jeter's actually going to go to the War on the Shore 3. So
War on the Shore 3. So,
but not Old Timers Day. That's how rumors start.
Yeah, exactly. So, but
yeah.
But interesting, one thing, Jimmy, that Dave just said, and it really wasn't said, is that Dave's take on it is Jeter's a member of the media, and that's why that maybe is a reason why he's not attending. Whereas Boomer just ripped him. The reason given, which was given by Susan Waldman, is that he was not attending because of his daughter's birthday, and they kind of left it at that. So, I mean, I guess the reason that she's given, because it really didn't come from Jeter's mouth, she's saying that's what Jeter told her, which I don't dispute that. So it's interesting because one would have to say, no matter how you look at the topic, is if there was another player, would they have gotten shredded, if you will, more than Jeter? And I think the answer to that is yes. So, like, for example, let's say, I don't know, insert whatever player, who said, yeah, Mariano Rivera, I'm not coming because it's my daughter's birthday. I think he, whoever else, you could insert, 1,000 different guys into the equation, and I think they would get ripped a little bit more for Jeter, by the New York media. I'm surprised that nobody has really bashed him from the national media because I think there's a very anti-Jeter sentiment out there in obviously other markets. So that's interesting.
There definitely is, but the thing is, he's involved. He was involved in the Marlins. He like you said, he's part of the media. So I think that he's living the second chapter of his life after his post career, like most people do. So, and listen, I watched the thing on Shaquille O'Neal about Reebok, and his son wants to get back in the league, and he goes to his son, we're done with basketball. He goes, how many Christmases did I miss? How many birthdays did I miss? It cost my marriage. So I think when these players realize is that how much has he sacrificed over the course of the years, how much has he missed? Your daughter's birthday is your daughter's birthday. It's so, I can kind of understand that. And Jeter's he's not going anywhere. It's not like a Yogi Berra thing where he got banned. He'll be back in the building. But I think right now he's just living his second chapter of his career, and he's got a family now. He's got a young family. So,
no, I get all that, but I think what needs to be said in this situation, right? And it's your take is very interesting. Dave's take is obviously very interesting as well. We're not talking, hey, listen, this happened 5 years ago. It is a quote unquote monumental anniversary of a 25-year. It's a 25-year celebration. You're the Yankees, who have a rich tradition. Old Timers Day has always been a big deal, even with the Q&A, right? They were the first team to really have Old Timers Day, I believe. And we're talking that they're basically designating the 2025 Old Timers Day to specifically honor the 2000 team. I mean, you have Gene Monahan, who was the trainer, who's retired, is coming back. Chris Chambliss, who was the coach, is coming back. You have a lot of guys, David Justice, who are making their first appearance at a Yankee Old Timers Day. And I think that's my thing, is that if this was a regular year, like if this was next year or last year, all right, hey, whatever. Listen, who are we to say the guy should be there? But, you're talking 25 years. That's my take on it. And I just really think that if it was somebody else, he would have got a hatchet job to him. And I don't think that can be disputed.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, but I think Jeter earned that too.
Like
I
if
think
this was Mike
I-
Mussina, for example, right? If this was Mike Mussina, and I want to put away the media, side of it because, listen, Phil Simms has been a member of the media for years. He's returned to Giant Stadium when they
yeah.
celebrated the '86 team, and that would be like my counter argument.
Well,
Is that
he even did a shout out to Bill Parcells when things were rocky with the Maras and the Tishes. So with Parcells too. So I mean,
yeah? But I
so
mean, again, I just think like if this was, for example, and I know Michael Kay has a lot of animosity with Mike Mussina, but if like Mike Mussina, for example, wasn't showing up or whoever, right? They would have got ripped to shreds. That's just
yeah. Well,
my take
yeah,
on it.
true.
And I just think that we're talking 25 years here. We're talking 25-year anniversary. It's a big one, for the team, to be with your teammates. Hey, listen, you don't want to come back every year. Listen, Yogi Berra stayed away, for years,
Yeah.
right? He had his reasons. But I mean, again, listen, don't come next year, right? Don't come, whatever. Don't come for the next 4 years, whatever.
Yeah.
I just think 25 years to be with your teammates, that's my take on it. But
Yeah. Well, interesting story for you, Jerry. I was down the Jersey Shore. I was with my son and my daughter. I see Al Leiter down there. He's walking out. And I said, I got one question for you. He said, shoot. I says, 141 pitches too much? He goes, it's 143 and no. So, but
There you go.
very nice guy. I had my picture taken with my daughter, but he was out there. I believe with his brother, not Mark Leiter, but the other brother. But I mean, pretty
When's he
interesting.
coming on the show?
I don't know. I didn't pull the trigger. He's committed to the MLB network. So he was on MLB network the next day. So he's walking around the Jersey Shore, but very nice guy. But he, there was a argument to him about him pitching that series. That was a great series, though. Yankees, Mets, and it's a memorable series. So I could see both sides of the argument. But I know, like I said, Jeter's involved in a lot of other things. So I mean, I don't think it's going to tarnish his legacy if he doesn't go there.
No, but you really want to get crazy, right? Let's say A-Rod wasn't coming back. He'd get obliterated.
Oh, absolutely. But A-Rod's not considered a Yankee. I don't think to some Yankee fans.
Listen, now you have definitely made my point, which is why he should be there after 25 years.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Yeah. Well,
no.
Very true.
4-4. I don't know. Like I said, it's not his daughter. I don't listen. We've all had, we've all had a situation. You and I, we worked a job, which is not a 9-to-5 job where you miss holidays. You had to miss occasions and stuff like that. Certain occasions. Listen, it's his daughter's birthday. We're talking. You don't have to stay for the game. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's me. Like I said, I'm focused. The one thing that I can't let go is that it's a 25-year anniversary. It's not just he's going off the all.
Well, I mean, it's a milestone year, especially.
It's a milestone. It's a milestone occasion. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, Hall of Fame,
when you have your big party for your 60th, I won't miss that.
That should be coming pretty soon. But
how soon is that coming, though?
A couple more years.
I'm
ahead of you. So I'm ahead of you. So
you don't want to give it up. All right, I like it.
Yeah, it's only 6 years away. So, but it got Hall of Fame weekend this weekend too. So you got Dick Allen, Dave Parker, CC Sabathia. I guess you broke down on
I was
Route
right.
17.
Listen, if I would have known sooner, I would have went to pick him up.
Yeah, exactly. I drove him up there. Ichiro and Billy Wagner. So
it's always exciting. Unfortunately, we talked about this in a previous episode that the Cobra is going to miss it. But,
but at least he was alive. At least he was alive to know that he was getting in. But it's a good group. Dick Allen was very popular. Veterans Committee guy, and CC deserves it. So and then one of our former guests, Kerry Yo, his exhibit's going to be up at the Baseball Hall of Fame. So so check that out. But what about your Red Bulls? I know they're looking at some players,
Yeah, I
trade
mean
deadline.
we got the Red Bulls that are Red Bulls. The Red Bulls. They really test your patience and your fortitude as a fan. But the one thing that I want to bring up, and I know when people love how we transition to soccer here, I mean that sarcastically, is
Yeah.
I didn't realize we had the MLS All-Star game this past Wednesday, and two of the more prominent players in the league decided not to play. Okay, which was Messi and Jordi Alba, who was also a ex-Barcelona guy who plays on Miami. MLS won 3-1. They played a mix, if you will, from Liga Mexico. So a Liga Mexico All-Star team. So anyway, Messi and Jordi Alba decided not to play due to personal reasons. They did not give an injury, so they just decided not to play. Long story short, they decided not to play to take the few days of rest. And apparently in the MLS contract, if you do not show, because they were voted in, selected for the All-Star game, if you elect not to play, it's a 1-game suspension.
Really?
So very, very interesting, considering how it's very commonplace in other sports for guys to forego the All-Star game as they get older. And so far, a lot of backlash. Messi said he didn't know that they didn't know that. Not that they're saying that would have impacted their decision, but there's a little bit of an outrage now because, they're going to get a game suspension. And ultimately now you're taking something, which is really a friendly ceremonial type thing, an All-Star game. And now you're affecting Miami's season.
Yeah.
So I was just very surprised that's part of the
Well, yeah,
players,
because too, what happens if you're nursing an injury or if
an injury, you're good.
Yeah, but
What they don't want is
but if you're still playing and you have a nagging injury and you're not hurt, but I mean decide not to play, and I don't know. I just think that does La Liga or the Premier League, do they have an All-Star game? So it's probably the concept. Growing up in the United States, it's probably we have the NBA, all these All-Star games probably coming
the MLS
from
the
these
MLS,
other. They don't have these All-Star games, so the concept is new to them, and maybe it probably either the organization didn't explain it to him, or he just says, "I'm not playing." I'm not playing. That's it. I'm not going to. But I think it's good for the league.
I look at it like this, though, is that I don't really have a problem with them not playing, because I understand why they want them to play. See, quick history lesson: MLS All-Star game once upon a time was traditional American type All-Star game, East versus West. Then they got smart, the MLS. They said, you know what? Let's play various, clubs around the world. And like they used to play Chelsea. I actually saw it at Red Bull Arena many years ago. I actually saw the MLS All-Stars play Manchester United, something like that. It's good to drum up, attention, if you will, and interest, for the MLS. But I look at it like this, is that two guys that are from Europe, from the European model, that don't have All-Star games, I look at it that somebody in the Miami organization dropped the ball, because when that conversation happened, they should have said, hey, guys, listen, this is the circumstances behind it. Like they, you know what I'm saying? Like it's almost
yeah.
without having all the info.
Listen, Messi could have went there and just gone through the motions,
right?
And then, or not played or whatever. But I don't think he wants.
And the bottom line, Jimmy, is any Miami fan that has a half a brain could give two craps if they played in the All-Star game. They want them to rest.
Yeah. Especially how it ended last season too. They only have Messi for a couple more years. So
right.
So he's an aging superstar. So they want to go deep, and nobody wants to see LA win again.
Oh, here we go. They were suspended.
One game. So hot off the presses. But Jerry, with that, I think we covered a lot. I think the Red Bulls, from my research, they're targeting Timo Werner from the German team.
Yeah, he's been rumored. I'm very impressed, Jimmy. I'm very impressed.
So listen, I got to do my due diligence on this show, or else to keep up with you, because other than that, I like to thank Dave Sturchio. I'll pass this along to Jerry, Dave, for stepping in when my computer went dead. But anyway, I'll Jerry pass this along to you about episode 61.
Well, Jimmy, we got nervous. We thought, the government finally came to you. They caught up with you because, a lot of people don't know you have many different aliases. So,
yeah. Well, man, split personality. So,
well,
so I post a lot of things on the
public now. That's on the
air. I post a lot of things on the dark web. So,
yes, again, we, Dave jumped in, and it was nice to get Dave's perspective on the Jeter situation. But again, that wraps up episode 61, and we will call this 61. We will call this our Chris Godfrey episode in a tribute to our favorite offensive line group, if you will, the Suburbanites. Again, thank you to Dave. Dave did a great job with his own events. You could check that out on all the social media accounts. Dave is really moving forward in the wrestling community. We'll leave it at that. And again, while we have that, very sad news, obviously, yesterday, because I think even if you were a casual fan, Hulk Hogan's passing, I think anybody, in their 40s and 50s, really he had an impact on you as a kid, and really did wonders for, the sports entertainment world. So we'll kind of end with that, sad news, Hulk Hogan passing.
Yeah, Thunder Lips.
Greatest line of all time, and I heard it for many years being an Italian. The ultimate male versus the ultimate meatball.
There you go. But he definitely
we'll end with that. Episode 61 in the books. We'll see you next time, hopefully with a new guest. Take care. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a good weekend.
Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Take care.